Yeah.
All right.
Can you hear that? Kind of.
Yep, I hear it.
I mean, I'm not like gonna hang on every word here either. And I'm turning this shit off. Yeah, boy. Okay. Oh, cool. We're live. All right. Sweet. And people are like, "Oh, well, look at these old idiots just fucking around with their garbo." So we got people on here.
Bunch of boomers.
Yeah. Bunch of fucking boomers.
I think, this is some boomer shit. I think this is the first time I've gone live like from my phone like this before. I mean, other than Twitter Spaces. So I don't know how many people are here yet, but
it says 26. 26.
All right, we got 26 viewers. Well, I guess we'll. So
I think at 20 it stops being pathetic. I think that's the rule.
Yeah. We got called boomers by the chat. It's official. We are boomers. It's true. No one's gonna deny it. So really, in our defense, though, like we're doing this because in the process of ruining everything, Elon Musk ruined something that I actually really care about quite a bit. Not just Twitter, but Twitter Spaces in particular, right? Eric and I kind of got in the habit of doing Twitter Spaces when there was Tesla news, Tesla earnings, and it was always a ton of fun. Sadly, Threads doesn't have it. Blue Sky doesn't have it. We're here because we don't want to do this on LinkedIn, which hopefully you'll see why, right?
Yeah. Although, I mean, I don't know, man. Like, LinkedIn is like low key, like one of the most inappropriate platforms I see. I see lots of like sexual harassment there. I mean, but it's not as, just not. I mean, it's more like just like generic. It's less like the type of stuff you see on Twitter. And like, yeah, I mean, I think it's just like, I mean, like you pulled the Band-Aid on Twitter. You just like straight up pulled the Band-Aid, and like I still like I'm just not as principled. I mean, it's such a great farming ground for just shit posting, and I just can't get away from it. So
honestly, I do. I mean, I kind of like you kind of need foil, right? Like you need dipshits to like spark whatever the opposite of joy is. So I mean, I post a few screenshots, but I don't get them myself. I steal screenshots from Threads and put them on Blue Sky. That's the secret to my social media empire.
Nice. Yeah, and so we'll just bullshit. And I don't know if wonder if there's a way to like patch in, like, I don't know, like the thing I liked about Threads in particular was like, or not Threads, like the Twitter Spaces, like it's just like anyone would just like, who all you do is have a Twitter account and you could log in, and we end up having some like really interesting conversations with people, just like kind of this like ad hoc thing. And like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just like on top of like everything else, it's just like the death of Twitter is just like really annoying, because like Twitter had its problems, but it was like this one place where like there was this like weird kind of stability, and it's like, yeah, of course this fucking guy had come and like ruin it. And like that's like my whole thing. So
yeah, no, it feels. I mean, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but it feels like in internet terms like the fall of the Roman Empire, where it's like there are still places where whatever, new networks, new places, new things happening, but like none of them, everything lives in the shadow of what Twitter was. And I don't know, we may never see that again. It may have been like one of those, it may have been like I don't know if you're the right age, but Facebook was, I was in college when Facebook started. You had to be .edu, and there was like,
yeah.
Facebook was like legitimately cool for 5 minutes there when literally nobody else was allowed to be there. And the idea that there would be consequences from what we posted there was an absurd fantasy. Yeah.
Well, there was like, yeah, I mean, like thing for me that actually, like, I actually defended Facebook longer than anyone, because I was like in like a 90% like travel job for in like the early 2010s, and like it was just crazy because I traveled all around the country. It wasn't like one big city or whatever. And I would just like search Facebook, be like, oh, what friend lives here? And I would like, I got to like keep up with like kind of like, I don't want to say marginal friends, like my best friends that I wouldn't have normally, like I didn't have like a big mailing list or whatever. And it was just like, Facebook was like really nice for that. And just like, I don't know. I think 2016 kind of ruined it all and whatever. And it's just like, shit changes. And if you get stuck in like, well, I don't know. Like, I think it's fine to like wax poetic over the way things used to be, but whatever.
Move on.
Anyway,
move on. Here we are.
Yep.
We still getting hold music?
We believe this is not.
Nope. Here we are.
Oh,
just started.
This is the most prompt starting Tesla earnings call ever.
The team did a great job executing in a tough environment, and energy storage deployments, the Megapack in particular, reached an all-time high in Q1.
Oh, sorry.
Leading to record profitability for the energy business, and that looks likely to continue to increase in the quarters and years ahead. It will increase. We actually know that it will. So significantly faster than the car business, as we
off to a confident start.
We also continue to expand our AI training capacity in Q1, more than doubling our training compute sequentially. In terms of the new product roadmap, there's been a lot of talk about our upcoming vehicle line in the past several weeks. We've updated our future vehicle lineup to accelerate the launch of new models ahead of previously mentioned start of production in the second half of 2025. So we expect it to be more like the early 2025, if not late this year. These new vehicles, including more affordable models, will use aspects of the next generation platform, as well as aspects of our current platforms, and will be able to be produced on the same manufacturing lines as our current vehicle lineup. So it's not contingent on any new factory or massive new production line. It'll be made on our current production lines.
Magically more affordable.
And we think this should allow us to get to over 3 million vehicles of capacity when realized to the full extent. Regarding FSD version 12, which is the pure AI-based self-driving.
So he's now just dropping as many AIs as possible. So
it's profound, and the rate of improvement is rapid. So we've now turned that on for all cars with the cameras and inference computer and everything from hardware 3 on in North America. So it's been pushed out to I think around 1.8 million vehicles.
Hey, let me know in the chat if you think he's on a K-hole. The answer is yes, but let me know.
Use it so far, and that percentage is increasing with each passing week. So we now have over 300 billion miles that have been driven with the FSD V12. Since the launch of full self-driving, supervised full self-driving, it's become very clear that the vision-based approach with end-to-end neural networks is the right solution for scalable autonomy. And it's really how humans.
How has it become?
Our entire road network is designed for biological neural nets and eyes.
The dumbest
cameras and digital neural nets are the solution to our current road system. To make it more accessible,
some new material.
The subscription price to $99 a month, so it's easy to try out. And as we've announced, we'll be showcasing our purpose-built robot taxi or cybercab in August.
Cybercab.
Regarding AI compute, over the past few months, we've been actively working on expanding Tesla's core AI infrastructure. For a while there, we were training constrained in our progress. We are, at this point, no longer training constrained, and so we're making rapid progress. We've installed and commissioned, meaning they're actually working, 35,000 H100 computers or GPUs. The GPU is the wrong word. They need a new word. I always feel like a wince when I say GPU because it's not GPU stands for G stands for graphics and doesn't do graphics.
Wow.
Anyway, roughly 35,000 H100s are active, and we expect that to be probably 85,000 or thereabouts by the end of this year. And training, just for training. We're making sure that we're being as efficient as possible in our training. It's not just about the number of H100s, but how efficiently they're used. So, in conclusion, we're super excited about our autonomy roadmap. I think it should be obvious to anyone who's driving version 12 in a Tesla that it is only a matter of time before we exceed the reliability of humans, and not much time at that.
Not much time. End of year.
Not
Say
much
it.
time at that.
Say end of the year.
An electric vehicle, an autonomous future. And I'll go back to something I said several years ago, that in the future, gasoline cars that are not autonomous will be like riding a horse and using a flip phone. And that will become very obvious in hindsight. We continue to make necessary investments that will drive success in the future. And I wanted to thank the Tesla team for incredible execution during this period, and look forward to everything that we have planned ahead.
The members who are still on the
Thank you very
team.
much. And about after some.
God, this sounds like someone reading a ransom note over the phone.
Elon said, from our auto business perspective, we did see a decline in revenues quarter over quarter, and those were primarily because of seasonality, uncertain macroeconomic environment, and the other reasons which Elon had mentioned earlier. Auto margins declined from 18.9 to 18.5%, excluding the impact of Cybertruck. The impact of pricing actions was largely offset by reductions.
Is Werner Herzog working at Tesla now?
Of revenue from auto park feature for certain vehicles in the US that previously did not have that functionality. Additionally, while we did experience higher costs due to the ramp of Model 3 in Fremont and disruptions in Berlin, these costs were largely offset by cost reduction initiatives. In fact, if we exclude Cybertruck and Fremont Model 3 ramp costs, the revenue from auto margins improved slightly. Currently, normalized Model Y cost per vehicle in Austin and Berlin are.
If you don't count the $100,000 vehicle that is selling the most expensive version right now, margins would have been better.
The using efforts of the team.
It's insane. So he's saying we extend Cybertruck and Fremont Model 3 that cost from revenue from Auto Park. We exclude the costs of revenue.
There is
we need to get a transcript of that.
Credits, and that means a steady stream of revenue for us. Obviously, seeing others pull back from EV is not the future we want. We would prefer it the whole industry went all in. On the demand front, we have undertaken a variety of initiatives, including lowering the price of both the purchase and subscription options for FSD, launching extremely attractive leasing specials for the Model 3 in the US for $299 a month, and offering attractive financing options in certain markets. We believe that our awareness activities paired with attractive financing will go a long way in expanding our reach and driving demand for our products. Our energy business continues to make meaningful progress with margins reaching a record of 24.6%. We expect the energy storage deployments for 2024 to grow at least 75% higher from 2023. And accordingly, this business will begin contributing significantly to our overall profitability. Note that there is a bit of lumpiness in our storage deployments due to a variety of factors that are outside of our control, so deployments may fluctuate quarter over quarter. On the operating expense front, we saw a sequential increase from our AI initiatives, continued investment in future projects, marketing, and other activities. We had negative free cash flow of $2.5 billion in the first quarter. The primary driver of this was an increase in inventory from a mismatch between builds and deliveries, as discussed before.
Mismatch between builds and deliveries.
Spend on CapEx.
They've got a
inventory is stacking up.
We expect the inventory build to.
If you guys are like insistent on hearing this, just let me know and I'll shut up. But on the operating expense, we saw a sequential increase from our AI initiatives.
We have to make the hard but necessary decision to reduce our headcount by over 10%.
I don't know what that fucking means.
It could mean literally anything.
Are expected to be well in excess of $1 billion on an annual run rate basis. We are also getting hyper focused on capex efficiency and utilizing our installed capacity in a more efficient manner.
Capex efficiency. We're spending less on capex, but we're going to have magical cars.
Will help improve our overall profitability and ultimately enable us to increase the scale of our investments in AI. In conclusion, the future is extremely bright, and the journey to get there, while challenging, will be extremely rewarding.
Would you say the future is so bright you need sunglasses?
For delivering great results. and we can open it up to Q&A.
Thank you. Okay, let's start with investor Q&A. The first question is, what is the status of 4680? What is the current output?
4680.
Let's go to YouTube.
4680 production increased about 18-20% over from Q4.
Who's
We
talking now? You
completed
said
a 1K
Lars?
for Cybertruck,
Yeah.
which is 7
He's
gigawatt hours.
basically like the guy on automotive, kind
We
of
expect
left
to
now.
with the cell production throughout Q2.
He must have a really fun job.
The 34 lines in
Nice.
phase 1, while maintaining multiple weeks of cell inventory to make sure we're ahead of the ramp. Because we're ramping, COGS continues to drop rapidly week over week, driven by yield improvements throughout the lines and production volume increases. So our goal, and we expect to do this, is to beat supplier cost of nickel-based cells by the end of the year.
Thank you. The second question is on Optimus. So what is the current status
He's
of
using
Optimus?
nickel-based cells
Are they
anymore.
currently performing any factory tasks? When do you expect to start mass production?
Mass production of Optimus. We're going.
We are able to do simple factory tasks, or at least I should say factory tasks in the lab.
Okay.
In terms of actually, we do think we will have Optimus in limited production in the factory, in the actual factory itself, doing useful tasks before the end of this year. So,
I mean, like it's just like that's.
and
I
then-
don't even know what to say. I mean, that's. I mean, that's like
I think we
horseshit.
may be able to sell it externally by the end of next year.
Like
I think this guess is.
he's just
As I
guessing.
said before, I think Optimus will be more valuable than everything else combined.
What hasn't he said that about though? He said that about energy, right? He said
About
energy,
Able to
autonomy,
navigate and
Optimus.
after class. There is no meaningful limit to the size of the economy. So
Infinite TAM. You hear that?
That's
Yeah.
what's going to happen.
It's fucking amazing.
And I think Tesla is best positioned of any humanoid robot maker to be able to reach volume production with efficient inference on the robot itself. The
Efficient
I mean,
inference.
this is a point that is worth emphasizing. Tesla's AI inference efficiency is vastly better than any other company.
Anyone in the chat that knows anything about AI, I'm guessing that's a bullshit made up term. Just let me know.
Inference. No, I just
We're constrained by the inference hardware in the car. We'd never choice. But that will pay dividends in many ways.
Yeah, I knew you'd say that, Ian. Come on, man.
Thank you. The third question is, what is Tesla's current assessment of the pathway?
the problem with like talking about inference efficiency is that it's a general use application. So like there's no how do you measure efficiency for right?
Oh, so you like heard an engineer say at one time, and now that's just like order of magnitude or volumetric efficiency. Okay, cool.
These states are paving the way for operations, while the data for such operations guide the broader adoption of driverless vehicles. I think Ashok can talk a little bit about our safety methodology, but we expect that these states and the work ongoing, as well as the data that we're providing, will pave the way for a broad-based regulatory approval in the U.S. at least, and then other countries as well.
Yeah. It's actually been pretty helpful that other autonomous car companies have been cutting a path through the regulatory jungle. That's actually quite helpful. And they have obviously been operating in San Francisco for a while. I think they got approval for City of LA. So these approvals are happening rapidly. I think if you've got at scale a statistically significant amount of data that shows conclusively that the autonomous car has.
Everyone else is doing the regulatory pathways, but also we're
he's still
ahead.
doing this. He's literally just making up regulatory like bars that don't exist, like and analyses. Like there's nobody does this. Nobody just looks at the miles and is like.
I don't think that there will be significant regulatory barriers provided there is conclusive data that the autonomous car is safer than a human-driven car. And in my view, this will be much like elevators. Like, elevators used to be operated by a guy with a relay switch, but sometimes that guy would get tired or drunk or just make a mistake and shear somebody in half between floors. So now we Just how we
That is,
stand in
no, the elevators have had safety stops, basically like one-way safety stops and fail-safe since like almost immediately after the elevator came out. So he's
Also,
fucking
there are some parallels between elevators and AVs, but like,
takes you to a destination.
you know, like they're pretty different too.
Yeah.
Just like an elevator. It takes you to your floor. That's it. Don't think about how the elevator
you don't
is
think about
working or anything like
this.
that.
I mean, like elevator is like, dude, elevator is like the worst
And,
analogy ever, man.
And something I should clarify is that Tesla will be operating the fleet. So you can think of like how Tesla.
So they're not selling the robotaxi.
Like,
not selling the robotaxi.
Airbnb and Uber.
That's brilliant.
And that there'll be some number of cars that Tesla owns itself and operates in the fleet. There'll be some number of cars that open, and then there'll be
This is the logical endpoint. It's what it's been all been building towards, is unveiling a car to pump the stock that they never have to sell, and so they never have to like. They can make as many or as few of these as they want, and they can be as good or as shitty as they want. I mean, so this is a
friends and family, or
this is an interesting clarification.
users or by anyone, and at any time they could have the car come back to them and be exclusively theirs, like an Airbnb. You could rent out your guest room.
This is like, I mean, this is the exact same, like,
so
by the way, the stock is up 11%. Not that that matters or is tethered to reality whatsoever.
But 7 million cars, 9 million cars, eventually tens of millions of cars.
How is this guy not in prison? Like, honest to God, like this is, I mean, this is, I don't know, man. Like, I don't even know like what you do about
every time
this.
something goes wrong.
I mean, I feel bad for our country, but this is tremendous content. Well, but what's weird is that he's saying the same thing that he's always said, but he's saying now, but we're also going to, right? Like, if these things are economic perpetual motion machines, like he's been saying since 2018, 19, whatever, why, like you kind of have to pick one here, right? Like, either it's in Tesla's interest to sell them, or it's in Tesla's interest to keep them and operate them as a fleet, but you can't have that both ways. Like it.
Yeah, I think he just compared himself to Google search, but I didn't hit it. But, well, I'm sure it's an AWS element.
Very powerful inference. Hardware 3 in the cars, but now all cars are being made with hardware 4. Hardware 5 is pretty much designed and designed cars. Hopefully towards the end of next year.
Wait, you need new hardware, bro?
To run when the car is not moving, to actually run distributed inference.
Oh my God.
AWS, but it's distributed inference. Like, it takes a lot of computers to train an AI model, but
we've got AI, we've got robot, we've got AWS, we've got Google search.
Imagine future
this is
a fleet of 100 million.
This is what I'm reading into it is like, this is. I mean, this is entirely obviously stock driven, right? He's just like, well, see these other things will be like this, but for this some like nebulous, like distributed
AI compute,
gigawatts of,
and even in an autonomous.
But AI compute is not calculated in gigawatts, right? It's just in flops or whatever.
50 hours a week.
Compute. I mean,
where the current computer could be doing something else.
Okay.
This is
the pump we've been waiting for. We're going to be using the compute in your cars for distributed super cluster compute, whatever, while you're not using it. It's such bullshit. Oh yeah, you're going to do all that. You're going to create a massive like AI cluster out of all the Teslas on the road using 4G. Yeah.
The millions of
take my money, Elon.
Yeah. Jumping out event or like other critical events that we have gathered database over many, many years. And we replay through all of them to make sure that we are.
Who's talking right now?
And on top of it, we have simulation systems.
I don't know who this is.
And test it in closed loop fashion. Once all of this is validated, we give it to our own QA drivers. We have hundreds of them in different cities in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Austin, New York, a lot of different locations. They are also driving this and collecting real world miles. And we have an estimate of what are the critical events Are they a net improvement compared to the previous week's builds? And once we have confidence that the build is a net improvement, then we start shipping to early users, like 2,000 employees initially, that they would like get the build. They would give feedback on like if it's an improvement or are they noticing some new issues that we did not capture in our own previous process.
What could be better than one Tesla crashing into a truck than 1,000 connected Teslas collaboratively crashing into trucks in real time? Yeah, hell yeah, bro. I don't know to like that comment, but I just gave it a shout out because it made me laugh.
Improvements along the way, and then any failures like Elon alluded to, we get the data back, add it to the training, and that improves the model in the next cycle. So we have this like constant feedback loop of issues, fixes, evaluations, and then it rinse and repeat. And especially with the new V2 architecture, all of this is automatically improving without requiring much engineering interventions, in the sense that engineers don't have to be creative and like.
Hey Nick, we'll make sure you're available for the next one. Definitely want some observations. Have a good one.
Failure, or like this is how a person says this is how you drive this intersection or something like that. We get the data back, we add it to the neural network, and it learns from that training data automatically, instead of some engineers saying that, oh, here you must rotate the steering wheel by this much or something like that. There's no hard inputs conditions. It's everything is neural network is pretty soft, it's probabilistic. So it will adapt its probability distribution based on the new data that it's getting.
Ed, who's talking?
I still don't know who this is.
Insight into how good the things will be, let's say 3 or 4 months, because we have.
He's just talking really fast and like kind of mumbly.
Are more capable than what is in the car, but have some issues with them that we need to fix. So there'll be a step change improvement.
Okay, so this is like clearly they want to be talking about anything but the operating results. I mean, this is.
As Ashok was saying,
well, Tesla's not just a car company.
No. Which I mean, there's always been part of it, but like they do not want to talk about the things that actually matter.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't either, based on that earnings report.
Maybe even be version 13 or version 14.
Version 13 or 14 because it's so good. I mean, this is it's like.
So we have,
I don't know. It's like absurd that it just keeps happening. It's like
with model.
maybe we are in a simulation. Like I don't know how to explain it.
In terms of scaling loss, people in the AI community generally talk about model scaling loss, where they increase the model size a lot, and then they're finding gains in performance. But we have
all of the analyst questions have to be about operating results, though, right? I mean, like I'm gonna lose my mind if they're all just asking about this new stuff, which they probably will. Like this is probably all just.
What is it? Let's take it to YouTube. Golly, that's classic.
Can train for much longer and get or like more GPUs or more Dojo nodes, and that also gives better performance. And you can also have architecture scaling where you come up with better architectures that for the same amount of compute produce better results. So a combination of model size scaling, data scaling, training compute scaling, and the architecture scaling, we can basically extract like, okay, if we continue scaling based on this ratio, we can sort of predict future performance. Obviously, it takes time to do the experiments because it takes few weeks to train. It takes few weeks to collect tens of millions of video clips and process all of them. But you can estimate what's going to be the future progress based on the
usually like I can't listen to these calls very well because I'm always like, oh well, like when's like because listening to Elon drives me nuts. But like I'm like listening to this, like I'm like, bring Elon back on. This is like
timeline for the $25,000 vehicle.
I don't. That was a lot of words, and like maybe I'm dumb. I don't know.
Works, but as you mentioned, we're updating our future vehicle lineup to accelerate the launch of our low-cost vehicles in a more CapEx efficient way. That's our mission, to get the most affordable cars to customers as fast as possible. These new vehicles we built on capacity, and that's a major shift to utilize all our capacity with marginal CapEx before we go.
Wait, this is Lars again, right?
Yeah, we'll talk about this more in overtake. But really the way to think of Tesla is almost entirely in terms of solving autonomy, autonomy for a gigantic fleet. And I think it might be the biggest asset value appreciation in history when that day happens. When you can
He's playing the hits. He's playing the hits.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Tesla's have one.
That's like literally probably the most indictable thing he's ever said, and he just said it again.
Or something.
Yeah,
And then
I
10
mean,
million.
I mean,
and
it's. I don't know. I mean, like,
eventually
actually, I think the Apple and Saudi Aramco one was actually like that one for me was like the most like when, and that's because it gave a specific number. Like, I mean, like, this is like, well, it's just gonna be the best thing ever, and it's like, well,
the next question is, what is the progress of Cybertruck rounds?
I can take that one too. Cybertruck hit 1K a week just a couple weeks ago. This happened in the first 4 to 5 months since we SOP'd late last year. Of course, volume production is what matters. That's what drives costs, and so our costs are dropping. But the ramp still faces challenges with so many new technologies.
We hit this metric, but it doesn't matter.
Limitations, etc., and we'll continue to ramp.
So they recalled 3,000, which are all 300, 800, were all on the road, but they've ramped recently to 1,000 per week.
The next question.
I mean,
they hit 1,000 in a week, probably at an implied rate or whatever dumb shit they've been getting away with for years. You remember Model 3.
Conversations with one major automaker regarding licensing FSD.
Thank you. The next question is about
one major automaker.
Elon already talked about that, so we'll have to wait till August.
Wait.
The following question is about the next generation vehicle. We already talked about that. So let's go to the Semi. What is the timeline for
Did they talk about it?
Semi truck? They talked about the new car and the.
Sure.
But they didn't really say anything.
So we're finalizing the engineering of the Semi to enable like a super cost-effective, high-volume production with our learnings from our fleet and pilot, our pilot fleet and Pepsi's fleet.
It's a piece of shit.
Like, expanding this year.
Too expensive.
Man,
in parallel, as we showed in the shareholders deck, we have started construction on the factory in Reno. Our first vehicles are planned for late 2025 with external customers starting in 2026.
So the Semi is now 2026 project, which after Optimus starts getting sold to the general public. So we're sure. It's fucking amazing.
Okay, next question. What is the gating the production ramp at Lathrop? Where do you see the megapack run rate at the end of the year? Mike?
Yeah, Lathrop is ramping as planned. We have our second GA line allowing us to increase our exit rate from 20 gigawatt hours.
So when did they stop allowing like analysts to actually call in? Does anybody remember?
That line. There's really
at least a year ago, probably longer.
The longer sales cycles for these large projects. We typically have order visibility.
By the way, the Semi, if it does come out in 27, that will be 10 years after they showed the prototype. A decade of development.
Just to ramp the factory.
Software style.
Optimus ready to be sold to the general public by the end of next year.
Tesla as a partner for these incredible projects.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to analyst questions. The first question comes from Tony Sakanagi from Bernstein. Tony, please go ahead and unmute.
Oh, okay. They do have the analyst. Okay.
Thank you for taking the question. I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on kind of the new vehicles that you talked about today. Are these like tweaks on existing models, given that they're going to be running on the same lines, or are these like new models, and how should we think about them, in the context of like the Model 3?
They use the same tooling. They're not new models.
What will these models be like relative to that? And given the quick time frame, Model 3 Highland has required a lot of work and a lot of retooling. Maybe you can help put that all in context. Thank you. And I have
it's not really helping sales much either.
I think we've said all we will on that front. So, what's your follow-up?
Why say more? Why say more?
Which is that you're leading many important companies right now. Maybe you can just talk about where your heart is at in terms of your interests, and do you expect to lessen your involvement with Tesla at any point over the next 3 years?
Well, Tesla constitutes the majority of my work time. And I work.
You can tell by how well it's doing.
It's rare for me to take a Sunday afternoon off. So I make sure Tesla is quite prosperous, and it is. I think it is prosperous, and it will be very much so in the future.
Wow.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Adam Jonas from
non-committal. Oh, here we
That
go.
was
Jonas.
not an answer. That was not an
Go
answer.
ahead and unmute.
No.
Okay, great. Hey, Elon.
Hey, Elon, great quarter.
You and your team on volume expect a 2024 growth rate notably lower than that achieved in 2023. But what's your team's degree of confidence on growth above 0%? Or, in other words, does that statement leave room for potentially lower sales year on year?
Jonas.
No, I think we'll have higher sales this year than last year.
I bet you internal projections do not say that.
My follow-up, Elon, on future product. If you had nailed execution, assuming that you nail execution on your next gen, cheaper vehicles, more aggressive gigacastings, I don't want to say one piece, but getting closer to one piece, structural pack, unboxed, 300-mile range, $25,000 price point, putting aside robotaxi, those features unique to you, how long would it take your best Chinese competitors to copy a cheaper and better vehicle that you could offer a couple of years from now? How long would it take your best Chinese competitors to copy that?
They already are better. They already are better and cheaper.
You don't lose market share if your product is that much better.
What our competitors can do.
The wily Chinese is like
relatively better than they have. If you look at the drop in our competitors' China sales versus our drop in sales, our drop is less than them.
No, that is the. I don't even know what to say.
But I think Kathy would said it best. Like, really, we should be thought of as an AI robotics company.
Yeah.
If you value Tesla as just like an auto company, you just have to fundamentally.
It makes no sense, right, bro?
If you ask the wrong question, then the right answer is impossible. So.
Learn that from Douglas Adams.
I mean, if somebody doesn't believe Tesla's going to solve autonomy, I think they should not be an investor in the company. Like that is, but we will, and we are. And then you have a car that goes from 10 hours of use a week, like an hour and a half a day, to probably 50. But it costs the same.
But doesn't, right? Like,
I think that's the key thing.
Even if that were true, it would destroy your volume growth.
FSD supervised. If you didn't believe in autonomy, they should give you a preview that this is coming. It's actually getting better day by day.
Yeah, if you've not tried the FSD 4.3,
right away, Waymo, bitch. Like, it's here.
12.5, even better than that.
Holy shit!
Subscriptions.
Then you really don't understand what's going on.
You don't know what's going on, man.
It's not possible.
Yeah, and
someone here doesn't know what's going on.
Look at this as a car company because
order of magnitude.
A car company would just have a car, but here we have more than a car company because the cars can be autonomous.
Yeah, Ed's already drinking, man.
Yeah, this is all in addition to Tesla. So the overall AI community is just like improving rapidly.
All right, I got to go into my own K-hole here. Give me a second.
So sort of be like, well, sort of like, tell us about future horse carriages you're making. I'm like, well, actually, it doesn't need a horse. That's the whole point. And that's really the whole point.
Okay, thank you. The next question,
you don't have to think about it any more than that. Just hand over the money.
Please go ahead and unmute.
Great, thanks. Yeah, so couldn't agree more. The thesis hinges completely on AI, the future of AI, full self-driving, neural net training, all of these things.
Where are they at? I don't even know this guy.
You've spoken about your desire to obtain 25% voting control of the company. And I understand completely why that would be.
Yeah.
So I'm not necessarily asking about that. I'm asking if you've come up with any mechanism by which you can ensure that you'll obtain that level of voting control. Because if not, then the core part of the thesis could potentially be at risk. So any additional commentary you might have.
Literally nobody else buys into this dumb shit.
No, none of these sell-side guys do either. They're playing. They're doing a dance.
If I get kidnapped by aliens tomorrow, Tesla will solve autonomy, maybe a little slower, but it would solve autonomy for vehicles at least. I don't know if it would win on with respect to Optimus or with respect to future products. But there's enough momentum for Tesla to solve autonomy, even if I disappeared for vehicles.
Holy shit!
I disappeared. Stop making me excited, man.
Whole range of things we can do in the future beyond that.
I guess it's good to know his narcissism has some limit somewhere, but come, bro.
Super sentient humanoid robot that can follow you indoors and that you can't escape. We're talking Terminator level risk. Then, yeah, I'd be.
This is a $500 billion company, folks. I don't even know what to say.
If there's not some meaningful level of influence over how that is deployed,
keep me around, or the Terminator will come for you.
Shareholders have an opportunity to ratify or re-ratify the sort of competition. I guess I can't say that. Whatever, but that is a fact. They have an opportunity.
Okay.
And
did he actually like listening to his lawyers? It sounded like he just followed lawyers' legal guidance there.
Like, hey, whoa, let's take it down.
Actually, all very helpful context. Thank you. Maybe one
lawyers get to check one box on this call.
OpEx reductions. Thank you for quantifying the impact there. I'd be interested also in potentially more qualitative discussion of what the implications are for these headcount reductions. What are the types of activities that you're presumably sacrificing as a result of parting ways with these folks? Thanks very much.
None, because Optimus will replace them. Watch.
So,
Barnacles.
Like we said, we've done these headcount reductions across the board. And, as companies grow over time, there are certain redundancies, there's some duplication of efforts which happens in certain areas. So you need to go back and look at where
15% headcount was.
Get rid of it. So we're basically going through that exercise wherein we're like, hey, how do we set this company right for the next phase of growth? And the way to think about it is, any tree which grows, it needs pruning. This is the pruning exercise which we went through.
What was it? Barnacles?
Yeah,
will be much stronger and much more.
This is a management team
to deal with the future, because the future is really bright. Like I said in my opening remarks, we just have to get
the future is bright. What do you want?
Yeah, we're not giving up anything that is significant that I'm aware of.
Barnacles.
We've had a long period of prosperity from 2019 to now, and
Lino left, like their VP of engineering, like nothing of value was lost.
To 25-30% of inefficiency. We've made some corrections along the way, but it is time to reorganize the company for the next phase of growth. And you really need to reorganize it, just like a human. When we start off as one cell and kind of zygote and blastocyst, and
the analogies are just like fast and thick.
And so,
but you shed the tail.
You shed the tail, hopefully, and then you're a baby, and you basically you have to be different. The organism, a company is kind of like a creature growing, and if you don't reorganize it for different phases of growth, it will fail.
I learned so much on these calls.
Organizational structure. If you're 10 cells versus 100 versus 1 million,
he's so painfully stupid. It's just like I don't even like.
Humans are like around 35 trillion cells.
Yes, he is just saying words. Thank you, Ask AB Stronautica. That's what he's doing. Yeah.
But, you're basically a walking cell colony of roughly 35 trillion, depending on your body mass.
And so you just lost 15% of your body mass.
Yeah.
So anyway, you've got to reorganize the company for a new phase of growth, or it will fail to achieve that growth.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's go to Mark Delaney from Goldman Sachs. Mark, please go ahead and unmute.
Come on,
Yes,
sweetie.
good afternoon. Thanks very much for taking the question. The company had previously characterized potential FSD licensing discussions as in the early phase, and some OEMs had not really been believing in it. Can you elaborate on how much the licensing business opportunity you mentioned today has progressed? And is there anything Tesla needs to achieve with the technology in terms of product milestones in order to be successful at reaching a licensing agreement?
Question.
It's a little earlier than that.
Well, I think it just needs to be obvious that our approach is the right approach. And I think it is. I think we're now with 12.3. If you just have the car drive you around, it is obvious that our solution with a relatively low cost
it's
inference
not.
computer
No, it's not.
and standard cameras
No.
can achieve self-driving.
It's the very greatest in supervised autonomy.
Nothing. Just
no heavy integration work.
Next, they're going to get into childless pregnancy.
So really just be a case of having them use the same cameras and inference.
Wasn't he using a bunch of like gestating fetuses references when the Model 3 was ramping? I can't remember. I think he was.
That triggers some like traumatic memories, I think, a little bit. I'm not going to try and remember too hard.
I'm pretty sure that.
Back when Nokia was at King of the Hill.
Nokia.
And I saw them come out with a smartphone that was basically a brick with limited functionality. And then the iPhone and Android. But people still did not understand.
The iPhone was pretty cool.
There's not going to be any flip phones.
He's got a point there.
Product or home phone.
There'll be no flip phones or home phones.
When was the last time you saw a home phone?
I have a flip phone. It's a Samsung Z Flip. It's actually really sick. It's got a really big screen, and you fold it, and it fits in your pocket well. Flip phones are back, baby.
Oh, did you finally stop breaking your phones?
We'll need 2 smartphones.
How dare you, sir? I'm never. I am so kind to my phones.
Obvious, I think licensing becomes not optional.
It becomes a method of survival.
Yeah, so it's license it or nobody will buy your car.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
one other thing which I'll add is in the conversations which we've had with some of these OEMs, I just want to also point out that they take a lot of time in the product life cycle.
Yeah.
They're talking about years before they will, put it in their product. We might have a license.
They don't want it.
It takes a while. So this is where the big difference between us and them is.
Really, a deal signed now would result in it being in a car in probably 3 years.
Okay. Everybody in the industry is always in early stage discussions with everybody. Like this means literally nothing. Yeah. And yes, welcome to the world of trying to get into an automotive supply chain. Yes, it takes years, because people actually validate their shit.
Yep.
Maybe more than one.
And he only said there's only one OEM that he's talked to.
It would be probably 3 years before it's integrated with a car, even though all you need is cameras.
All you need is cameras.
Our inference computer.
And our inference computer. It's
like not a massive design change.
Yeah, and again, just to clarify, it's not the work which we have to do, it's the work which they have to do, which take the time.
Is that the CFO talking the new one?
Early stage conversations with one OEM. You could not get a $2 million, Series A raised on the strength of that. You couldn't get any, no amount of money is going to go into.
Especially for vehicles that have access to IRA and the leasing offers that Tesla has in place, you still see meaningful incremental price reductions as making sense from here for the existing products. And can the company meaningfully lower prices from here and also stay free cash flow positive on an annual basis with the current product set? Thanks.
That's a question.
Yeah, I think we can be free cash flow positive meaningfully.
Why not? Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
Bob said it in his opening remarks. Our cost down efforts, we're offsetting the price cut. That's what I was going to say. We're trying to give it back to the customers.
Yeah. At the end of the day, for any given company, if you sell a great product at a great price, if you have a great product at a great price, the sales will be excellent. That's true of any arena. So over time, we do need to keep making sure that we're
sophisticated stuff.
A great product at a great price. The more
this is how you get a $55 billion compensation package.
The value for money and the fundamental affordability question. The fundamental affordability question is sometimes overlooked. If somebody's earning several $100,000 a year, they don't think of a car from a fundamental affordability standpoint. But for the vast majority of people are living paycheck to paycheck, so it actually makes a difference if the cost per month for lease or financing is $10 one way or the other.
Oh no shit, man!
So it is important to keep improving the affordability.
Okay.
And to keep it's just like making the price.
People forget that Elon got a degree in economics from Penn.
Money better.
Yeah, I mean,
economics is literally one of the only things he has a degree in.
It's got to be a great product at a great price, and the standards for what constitutes a great product at a great price keep increasing. So there's like you can't just be static.
It's called competition, Elon. There's a word for it.
It is. There is a word for it.
Improving the cost of production, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, and in fact, like I said in my opening remarks, also like the updated Model 3 is a fantastic car. I don't think people fully even understand the amount of engineering effort which has gone, and Lars and team have actually.
Of course they don't, because it looks the same, and so it's not helping the sales.
It looks and feels different. Not only it looks and feels different, we've added so much value to it, but you can lease it for like as low as $299 a month.
Yeah.
Without gas.
Yeah.
And yet your revenues are down. Your automotive revenues are down. What does this tell you?
George.
It's because they're passing the savings along to you, the customer.
Hi. Thank you for taking my question.
I'm the shareholder.
Can you please help us understand maybe some of the timing of launching FSD in additional geographies, including maybe clarifying your recent comment about China? Thank you.
I mean, like new markets, yeah. There are a bunch of markets where we don't currently sell cars that we should be selling cars in.
That wasn't the question.
We'll see some acceleration of that.
That wasn't the question.
And FSD new markets?
Yeah. So the thing about the end-to-end neural net based autonomy is that just like a human, it actually works pretty well without modification in almost any market. So we plan on, with the approval of the regulators.
So we got some racists in here. I'm gonna
a supervised autonomy system in any market that would get regulatory approval for that, which we think includes China. So yeah, it's
do I need to?
You can go rent a car in a foreign country and you can drive pretty well. Obviously, if you're
no, we got a guy trying to slip slurs into the chat.
I got it.
Better.
Classic stuff.
Countries with country-specific training, but it can drive quite well almost everywhere.
Yeah, the basics of driving are basically the same everywhere. Like a car is a car, traffic is a traffic light, road is the road.
Yeah, it understands that it shouldn't hit things no matter where.
Exactly. There are some rules that you need to follow. In China, you shouldn't cross over a solid line to do a lane change. US is.
So I would blame that on Musk, but I've been on YouTube long enough to know that
you're gonna get racist.
Some reductions, but mostly smaller reductions, not like an entire change of stack or something like that.
Yeah,
this is pretty low energy, man.
Follow-up has to do with the first quarter deliveries, and I'm curious as to whether or not you feel that supply constraints that you mentioned throughout the release impacted the results, and if you can you help us quantify that, and is that why you have some confidence in unit growth in 2024?
Yeah, I think we did cover this a little bit in the opening remarks too. Q1 had a lot of different things which were happening.
Red Sea
is a big one.
Red Sea, yep.
Pressure from the macroeconomic environment.
Tesla is famously the only company that has to do business despite factors that are out of their control. You people understand this.
Right.
all these things.
Next card will be like the ongoing Discord at the University of Columbia campus has really.
And that gives us the confidence that, hey, we don't expect these things to.
Headwinds this quarter included. It's allergy season.
Although, to be fair, from what I've seen, there's a lot of brain worms going on around there. So that may actually be a good explanation.
If you've got cars that are sitting on ships, they obviously cannot be delivered to people. And if you've got, excess demand for Model 3 or Model Y in one market, but you don't have it there, it's extremely complex.
By the way, if he says force majeure, I get bingo.
I didn't hear force majeure yet, but he likes that one though.
Oh, it's coming. I can feel it.
The sales process, which we've just in the past week or so have greatly simplified. So it became far too complex to buy a Tesla, whereas it should just be you can buy the car in under a minute. So we're getting back to the you can buy a Tesla in under a minute interface.
Like he doesn't understand. I don't know.
Okay,
nobody wants to spend $40,000 in a minute. Like,
right? No, people like reading about it. Like, I don't know.
Thanks so much, guys. Given the pursuit of Tesla really as the leader in AI for the physical world, and your comments around distributed inference, can you talk about what that approach is unlocking beyond what's happening in the vehicle right now?
So, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think I mentioned like the car, even when it's a full robotaxi, it's probably going to be used around 50 hours a week.
That's my guess, like a third of the hours a week.
Yeah, it could be more or less, but then there's certainly going to be some hours left for charging and cleaning and maintenance. In that world, it can do a lot of other workloads. Even right now, we are seeing, for example, these LLM companies have this like batch workloads where they send a bunch of documents, and those are run through pretty large neural networks. And take a lot of compute to chunk through those workloads. And now that we have already paid for this compute in these cars, it might be wise to use them and not let them be idle. Be like buying a lot of expensive machinery and letting them be idle. Like we don't want that.
That's implying that there's a time component instead of a cycles component. Someone tell me if I'm wrong here, because that is right. So they're just basically saying like, well, we've bought this shit, and like your Tesla is going to be super convenient because it's going to have like a GPU like running cycles. Like, I mean, like that's
no. What they're saying is that they're going to like tap into your Tesla and like make it part of some cluster to do like they're going to be able to do more training without buying more computers because they're using GPUs that they already sold to you.
So then what should they do with all that excess compute for the rest of the year?
That's
monetized. So
it's the most goofy, but honestly, now that I hear it, this is one of those things. This was the pump I was right. I knew there was something left in the tank, and this is that. It's we're gonna use the GPU. I remember during the crypto boom, there was like everyone was like, "Oh man, Elon's gonna come out and say we're gonna use all of the like idle Tesla GPUs to mine crypto." He should have done that then. That was the moment for this pump. He kept this one in the pocket for a little too long. But here it is. And you know what? Honestly, like considering the rest of this call has all just been recycled bullshit from like 2019 or whatever, 18. Hey, it's something new. We got some new material. Like it's be grateful.
More than any company. Probably more than any company.
Yeah, probably. Because it takes a lot of intelligence to drive the car anyway. And when it's not driving the car, you just put this intelligence to other users, just solving scientific problems.
Just like a human.
Or answering dumb questions for someone else.
Are they saying
that Tesla will extract the economic benefit or the user will?
No, the Tesla will.
That's amazing.
That's amazing. Basically they're saying that like all the cars out there driving around are like this big distributed like cluster that Tesla can like turn into gold. This is how they're going to get more AI, whatever, right? Like with no capex. They already spent the capital. They already bought the GPUs. They put them in the cars. Now they just have to use them. And by the way, like cars that, if you run down the battery,
you're in bad shape.
Like that's not super cool. Oh my God.
Which is crazy power compared to a phone. If you've got a 50 or 60 kilowatt hour pack, it's still not a big deal to run.
I mean, like that. Okay, so this is the thing. They're saying like it'd be like one thing if they're like, okay, this is our fleet and whatever, but they're like, my read on this, they're like, we're gonna sell you a car, and then you're selling someone a processing unit, right? That has, it's not just rated for years of existence on this planet. It is rated for like basically the number of cycles, right? I mean, if you talk about like just like electrical engineering 101, right? I mean, like material science, and so there's like I don't know.
But they're not going to just run cycles. They're not just going to run cycles on your hardware. They're going to take your energy to use it, right?
Right.
And by the way, they're also going to, like I said, like link up all this whole cluster using cellular, because that's how that definitely makes perfect sense. Totally plausible.
That's fucking insane, man.
No, I'm enjoying it. So like we have new material, we have a new pump. Like it's been a minute since we had a genuinely new pump, and like it feels like the old days, Eric. I'm like kind of stoked on it. Maybe this is the switching from coffee to wine, but
it might be. I don't know. I feel like I don't know. This one feels like it doesn't have staying power, but also like I don't know.
Oh no!
I'm out of
no! Like this is not going to be. They're not going to recycle this one for another decade. But like, it's new.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to note also that like the ramp right now is relevant to the Cybertruck ramp.
Yeah.
And so like we're not going to just randomly build 4680s unless we have a place to put them. And so we're going to make sure we're prudent with that. But we also have a lot of investments.
That's called industrial logic, folks.
Great partners, and they done great development work with us, and a lot of the advancements in technology and chemistry we found for 4680, they're also putting into their cells.
Yeah, I mean, a big part of the 4680 Tesla doing internal cells was a hedge against what would happen with our suppliers, because it was very difficult because
the hedge that we sold is a game changer.
And so the price per kilowatt hour of lithium-ion batteries went to crazy numbers, to crazy levels,
bonkers.
Yeah.
And now the market for EVs is in the shitter, and all of a sudden we don't need that hedge anymore.
Don't worry, none of that capital was illy allocated. I mean, there no write-offs needed, no write-downs.
If we have an internal cell production, then we have that hedge against demand shocks. There was too much demand. That's really the way to think about it. So it's not like we want to take on a whole bunch of problems just for the hell of it.
No, you want to take a bunch of problems to pump your stock.
In order to address the crazy increase in cost per kilowatt hour from our suppliers due to gigantic orders placed by every car maker on Earth.
So, okay, thank you. And the last question comes from
Taylor
from Baird.
Baird.
Go ahead and unmute. And you're still muted.
This could be a good question.
Again, we'd just like to strongly recommend that anyone who is, I guess, thinking about the Tesla stock should really drive FSD 12.3. You can't. It's impossible to understand the company if you do not do this.
It's also impossible to understand the quality of a driving automation technology system, like a driving automated driving system, like just by being behind the wheel.
Wolf Research.
Yeah.
Final question.
Oh, hey. Thanks so much. Elon, during the Investor Day last year, you mentioned that auto COGS per unit for the next gen vehicle would decline by 50% versus the current 3 and Y. I think that was implying something around $20,000 of COGS. About a third of that was coming from the unbox manufacturing process. But I'm curious if you see an opportunity that some of the other drivers around powertrain cost reduction or material cost savings, would those be largely transferable to some of the new products that you're now talking about introducing?
Of course.
Yeah, sure. I mean, in short, yes. I mean, like, the unbox manufacturing method is certainly great and revolutionary, but with it comes some risk because it's new production lines, not, but all the subsystems we developed.
Because it's fucking
whether it
dumb
was
idea.
driving units, battery improvements in manufacturing and automation, thermal systems, feeding, integration of interior components, and reduction of LV controllers. All that's transferable, and that's what we're doing. Trying to get it in their products as fast as possible. And so that engineering work, we're not trying to just throw it away and put it, in a coffin. We're going to take it and utilize it to the best advantage of the cars we make and the future cars we make.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then just on that topic of 4680 cells, I know you mentioned it. You really thought of it more as like a hedge against rising battery costs from other OEMs, but it seems even today, it seems like you would have a cost advantage against some of those other automakers. And I'm wondering, given the rationalizing of your vehicle manufacturing plans that you're talking about now, if there's an opportunity to maybe convert the 4680 cells and maybe sell those to other automakers and really generate an additional revenue stream. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts about that.
Right. What seems to be happening is that unless I'm missing something, the orders for batteries from other automakers have declined dramatically. So
that makes sense. They're responding to the market, bro.
Prices for
oh man, if only there was an economist that could have told them
dramatically more competitive than in the past.
That this is what happens with commodities.
A lot of our suppliers have excess capacity.
Yeah. In addition to what Elon said, this is kind of relevant. In addition to what Elon said about 4680, what 4680 did for us from a supply chain perspective was help us understand the supply chain that's upstream of our cell suppliers. So a lot of the deals that we had struck for 4680, we can also supply those materials to our partners, help reducing the overall cost back to Tesla. So we're basically inserting ourselves.
So it was a failure, but we can maybe sell the tooling to someone.
Right. And reducing the overall pricing in addition to the excess capacity that these suppliers have.
Beautiful.
And to be clear, they won't do that because the write down, right? You can just let it depreciate in the balance sheet faster than you can write it down.
Right. Well, who's going to who wants to buy equipment to build cells that no one else is using? And why would anyone use the cells when, we know from the Cybertruck being in the wild, like there's no advantage to it. It doesn't charge faster. There's no better density. There's no nothing.
Right.
So it's like,
but from what I've seen, they're buying like pretty generic equipment, right? So
there's going to be somewhat of a
whatever. So they're in the used cell manufacturing business, like equipment business, like.
Right, and I mean, you're going to sell it for 10 cents on a dollar, right? And so even with that, it's
It just the idea that is a defense of the multiple that Tesla enjoys is.
Yeah, exactly. Roth IRA. It's like a poor Spider-Man situation, which IRA wins. So
what do we miss?
Complicate the incentive structure, so that there is perhaps there's a stronger demand for cells that are produced in the U.S. than outside the U.S. But then, how long does the IRA last? I don't know.
Which is why it's important that we have both internal cells and vendor cells to hedge against all of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's geopolitical risk. Wow, who could have imagined that there's tension between the U.S. and China and
short announcement. And I wanted to let the investment community know that about a month ago, I met up with Elon and Vaibhav and announced that I'll be moving on from the world of investor relations. I'll be hanging around for another couple of months or so feel free to reach out anytime. But after this 7-year sprint, I'm going to be taking a break and spending some good quality time with my family.
Yeah. He wants to spend more time lying to his family.
My professional life. I'll never forget the memories from, I started literally at the beginning of production hell and just watching the company from the inside to see what it's become today. And I'm especially super thankful to the people
today specifically
and dozens of people outside of this room that I've worked for over the years. I think the team strength and teamwork at Tesla is unlike anything else I've seen in my career. Elon, thank you very much for this opportunity. that I got back in 2017. Thank you for seeking
that's like the biggest
feedback
downtick
and
I've seen is
regularly
when
debating
Martin
it
said he's
with me.
leaving.
Yeah, well, I mean,
He's like, I'm going to go somewhere else to commit SEC securities violations.
Yeah, thank you for helping Tesla get to where it is today over 7 years. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for all the thousands of shareholders that we've met over the years and walked around factories and loved all the interactions, even the tough.
Whoops. I accidentally closed the tab. Sorry. If you guys want to hear the rest of Martin's
yeah, I think that wow.
So my thought was there was a conceited effort to avoid talking about any of the real issues.
Yep. You would never know. You would never know listening to this call that I don't even know offhand like what percentage of Tesla's revenue comes from cars. I don't even look to think this to look this up anymore, but like 90 something, right? You would not know listening to this call that 90+% of revenue comes from making and selling cars. Like you just wouldn't occur to you if you were a space alien. Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, like I'm just going through some of your comments. I was reading them. I was like triple tasking. If we just in general, if you guys like this format, let me know. I don't know if you guys could hear okay. If you didn't, if you want us to talk more or less, whatever. You're never going to get away from pithy commentary from me. It's just not possible.
So I mean, like, I was expecting more of the same than we got. Like, again, it's exciting that we have a new and like even more right. They've been the pumps have been getting stupider for a really long time, and like 2016 was when it really started to get out into really stupid, and that was like that was 8 years ago, and so. It's cool that Elon still has enough like creativity left to come up with another like really dumb idea. Although again, like I said before, this is really an idea for the crypto bull market era. So I think he missed the boat on that. But other than the idea that you're going to turn every Tesla out there into some kind of AI supercomputer cluster where you put cycles on GPUs that you've sold to other people and you take their electricity and you do it all over, whether it's Wi-Fi or 5G, like it doesn't matter. Like the whole thing is so goofy. You do it through consumer routers, even on the Wi-Fi side, like it's goofy, but it's new, right? It's something. Because other than that big new dumb idea from Elon, it's Tesla's not a car company. It's it's we can like our products are just going to magically be better without any kind of capex. It's just I don't know, like more of the same.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I don't know. I mean, like it's impossible to call Musk lucid because he's not, because he regurgitates just like complete horseshit just 24/7. That was a lot more. He didn't sound like it's like he had it's like he's gotten better at like timing the ebbs and flows or whatever like drugs he's using, and like he's got it right at the point where he's buzzing right. Because he's like, I mean, he still kind of sounded like a little bit more depressed than I'm used, but he wasn't like, I don't know. I guess I was expecting either him to be kind of more manic or to be like, combative. I don't know. Like I don't know, man. I don't know.
It was definitely a subdued performance, like given the circumstances. But like, it's also worth. I mean, right? Even though it was more of the same, and like almost everything he said is something that he said, at least once before. At least like a lot of this stuff, like years and years, he's been sort of saying the same thing. The thing that really I think is worth sort of focusing on a little bit is just the idea that for him, right? If you ask him, what is like, how are you, right? If you sort of take everything and sort of LLM it into like, what is the reason based on what was said by Elon Musk on this call, what is the reason to invest in Tesla? Or like how and why should you think about investing in Tesla? it boils down to get in a Tesla and activate version 12.3 of full self-driving, and like you will want to put your money in this company. And like that's not like
not compelling, but it's actually the most compelling part of it, because I like for me the thing like I'm like sitting there and listening to them, you know, talk about, and like, right. So I think that was the big thing, right? So it wasn't like the thing that Musk, like, I call him an idiot all the time because I really believe he is, but he's got like a level of savvy. He like, it's very like Trumpian, right? He knows like what to say at the right moments, right? So he's not going to just say it's AI, right? It's going to be like, oh, it's AI, but in the real world. And then I think the smart thing, right? If you're talking about like what is his motivation, which is like clearly to keep the stock high, to own the shorts and whatever it is, keep whatever this grift going is that he's smart enough to be like, okay, people are like watching a large cap company that's been faltering, that's like trailing the S&P, and like go back and look at these other kind of big cap companies as they hit lulls and then like, you know, went on a tear, right? And you mentioned like, you know, AWS. That's the savvy part of Musk. He wants you to think it's like AWS kind of, but it's like, but he doesn't seem like he really has a vision for it, because I mean, like the vision for it, like and again, I'm not a compute guy. I'm not a software engineer. I know like barely enough coding to like cause a little bit of trouble. Like I'm pretty good at writing like macros in Excel, but I'm like, that's not like my domain at all. But like, it seems to me that it's just this like vague idea of like, well, you know, Amazon has like the hard cloud on this lockdown, Amazon and Microsoft and whatever, and we're like some sort of like blob of compute that's like also based on like seeing stuff in the real world, and we'll be able to, you know, like use this data mesh network. And it's not even the data that they're collecting. Like I think most consumers would be okay is if they're like, okay, well, we're the data you collect in, right? Like, you know, like the like, and I mean, as much as I dump on Tesla, right? If they're using that training data to like make the self-driving software better, if this is like truly what's happening, I don't know, like whatever. And they're using that and they're selling it to a mapping service or a service that wants to track how many pedestrians there are in a certain area for a total different area. That like makes sense. And like, I think everyone's fine with it. But I think for me, like the shark jumping moment where I'm like, what the fuck? Where they're like, we will just like, your car isn't in use all the time. And before that was, oh, you know, this was the original robo-taxi pitch. You buy a Model 3 and the car will be able to drive itself and it'll pay for itself, right? Because you'll be able to loan it out to like ride sharing. But now the way, and maybe I'm misinterpreting, it's like they're like, no, we'll just be able to hijack a computer that again is like, you know, these computer parts have limited number of cycles. We will hijack the cycles in this depreciating, very expensive asset that is presumably owned by someone else and use it for our own economic benefit. Like, I don't know, like
who wants that? Right? Like other than the psycho like investor fan base, nobody it's not right. It's like Tesla will sell you something and then steal parts of it back from you. Like it's just not a compelling sales pitch.
Do you remember the folding at home thing? This is what I've remember.
Yeah.
So folding home was like, and they had like you could either loan your seat.
I'm so old. I remember SETI at home. You remember that? Search for extraterrestrial intelligence at home.
Yep.
That was hot shit in the 90s.
Yep. So, but yeah, I mean, it's like so you're like so that was for like people got like they did a really good job. I think that was Berkeley or something. It was a California research-based institution that had set it up.
Academic, right? Like nonprofit.
Yeah, so people felt like they were helping humanity, but they also like they added a competitive element, like join a pool and whatever. And then like that was like that was at about the same time as like crypto was starting to take off, right? So like it was like really like wasteful. Like, I remember people had like modded people had added more current into like their PS3s to be able to like crank more cycles out. And you're basically like heating up like this I think it was the PS3 was the one they used, and it was like these like very hot units. But like people felt good about it. And then it's like, well, it had to turn into like something greed for your own personal wealth for, you know, crypto and whatever. And like now they're just saying like, we'll just sell people shit and we'll just like take their cycles back. And like, I don't see anyone who's not, and again, I don't see anyone who's not a person who's just entirely fixated on owning Tesla products and making the Tesla stock go up, which is hundreds of thousands of people, but it's not it's not millions and millions. It is a lot of people, but I mean, like, I just like the news stories. How do you get people to buy off on that? Like, we're going to not just take the data that we've already collected, like, right? So like Facebook, like, well, we'll take your data, we'll give you a better feed, and we're also going to sell it to advertisers, right? Like basically they're just saying, we're going to like sell you a physical good that has like a limited lifespan, and we're going to accelerate depreciation on that product, and we will use it for our economic benefit, and go fuck yourself.
At our discretion.
Right. That's right. That was my read on it, but I mean, I don't think that was a cohesive, like, there's no cohesive vision there. They're just like, well, we'll be like, Amazon Web Services, but like in like.
There is, Eric, there is a cohesive vision here. There's even a term for it. It's called enshittification.
Yes.
Right?
Well,
right now, today, you can buy a Tesla and like, you don't have to worry about Elon Musk, like, stealing the battery and running cycles on the chip, right? Like that, right? The status quo, as many problems as there are with the Tesla ownership experience, is what it is. What he is proposing is to make it worse, right? To extract value from something after they sell it to you, and who that's for is a huge mystery to me. But I think, if I were on this call, this isn't the first time, like it's also not super surprising that he thinks he can get away with this, given that, and I'll just, what I would ask about on this call is sort of like, hey man, like, how many people have you charged $10,000 to $15,000 for full self-driving? And, with the explicit promise, as you repeated on this call, that like, when you solve this problem, which by the way, like, anybody who says that autonomy is a singular solvable problem is not serious. Like that, if you don't know anything else about driving automation technology, understand that if you say autonomous driving is a singular problem to solve, like, it's not. The technology we're nowhere close to a world where that makes sense as a way to think about this technology. It's just childlike fantasy, and that's the realm that he's working in. But again, like, it's one, right? Like fool me once, shame on, right? Shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And like, Tesla's in a position right now where their sales are falling, right? Their automotive revenue is falling. That is what pays the bills, once they decide to pay the bills. Right? It comes from money from making and selling cars. And like, those cars, people have bought them, and people have, like, ridiculously, by automotive industry standards, like $1,000 option packs in the auto industry. I mean, there are, but like, you get a lot for that, right? Like no one sells you magic beans for $10,000 or $15,000 in the auto industry. And it's like, everyone's like, oh, Tesla's profit margins. Well, no shit. Like, even if a tiny percentage of people are falling for the scam, like, it's $10,000 to $15,000 per car in an industry where people will battle for months, in the design phase over pennies per car, at actual scale. And so,
but isn't that kind of the genius of Tesla, though? I mean, like, in a ways, like, right? So if you meld the dealership model together, right? So again, talking about hedging, the way companies have hedged is to move away from, either your contra-cyclical, or your your market, and that's why they've moved away from vertical integration. I've worked at companies that have divested off and spun off huge businesses, and like, the dealership is very profitable, but it runs at a slightly offset or different interest rate sensitivity, timing than the actual manufacturer. And so the car manufacturer has been like, no, we need like some stability in like our operations, right? And so they've divested that part of the operation. And what I was saying is like, it's funny because you said that, like, you were talking about the manufacturers, right? But I've bought a car where I remember I bought a car and I didn't realize until like afterwards that they had like put in something, like I ended up, and it was like financed at like low rates over like 3 years or whatever. But like, I paid like $600 for a cargo net, right? So it's not like it's a little bit higher and it's a little bit more extreme, but like that is the genius of Tesla's, is that melding of the dealership model, but there's a reason that the manufacturers spun off from selling their own cars direct to customers, because there there's potential when times are good and everything's synced up for you to make a lot of money, but there's also just like it presents. It's like oil and gas companies. They used to own exploration and production facilities, and they also own midstream, pipeline processing facilities, and they all spun them off because they're like the specific interest rate, financing, operational a separation between these two assets. They create some sense of balance, but they also minimize, returns in the short term, over multiple cycles. This is what like oil and gas companies learn, right? So this is not like, but I think, just kind of taking a step back from that, what I don't get is that, even in shitification, which I love reading about, and like Corey's stuff is great, and I agree with it, and like it makes sense, right? You get like it's a consequence of like, kind of monopoly or quasi monopoly positioning, right? You like, your customer's trapped. But I think what annoys me and bothers me here, like that, just like there's no, like, even if you live in the fantasy land where full self-driving is like, right? So even if I'm like, okay, yeah, Ed, I personally know you're full of shit, but like I'm a drooler that is like super into Musk and whatever, and like it sounds like something that could happen. I can imagine. I see a car that kind of drives itself. Yeah, like I mean, getting that from that 98% reliable to 4 nines or whatever it is like, that's all the work. But like still, like for fully gullible people, that's fine. For social media, right? So what are you giving Facebook? You're giving them your information, right? And information is like really, it's really valuable to us. Maybe doesn't even have an economic value, but like until that's exploited in a way, like it doesn't really matter because it doesn't cost me anything. What bothers me here is that the implication is like, we're going to sell you something expensive, and like people, even like the dumbest drooling fan is going to understand like you're like stealing your power, which has like $1 value. You're stealing their. So I think someone saw it where they're like, oh, your Wi-Fi connection, right? Like now that Comcast has brought nationwide like metering limits on like home internet service. It's not just them; it's Cox and whoever else. Like you, and then on top of that, the supercomputer or whatever they call it, the thinking machine inside of the car itself. Like you are depreciating away a physical good that has $1 and cents attached to it with no benefit to you. So that information is going to Facebook is anyway. That's what I.
And at the same time, you're pivoting your autonomy strategy to a new model that won't be for sale, but will essentially just compete with the car that you bought and pay $10,000 to $15,000 extra so that it would be a robotaxi when you weren't using it. And so basically what they're saying is that instead of, hey, everyone who bought a Tesla since 2016, instead of your car going out and being a robotaxi for you while you're not using it, instead it's going to sit there and like, well, I don't know, mine cryptocurrency for Elon. It's going to mine Dogecoin for Elon. Like that's what they're saying, right? Because and what I've said all along, and what anybody who knows anything about taxis or AVs or whatever, like not even you don't even have to understand the AV business, just the taxi and the fleet business, right? Like Teslas are terrible fleet vehicles. Like people buy them because they're suckers and they think like, oh, it's like a smartphone on wheels and whatever, all the stupid things that people think are just like make Tesla so important. And the reality is like when they're in fleets, right, as Hertz learned, and as like, I've wrote a story in freaking 2019 about all the European and Canadian and whatever fleet companies that thought it was a great idea to buy a bunch of Model 3s and learn to regret it. Like we've always known the Model 3 is going to be a bad taxi or robotaxi, right? And now they're essentially saying, well, even if it is inherently a bad robotaxi, we're also going to compete with it with a purpose-built thing. Even, and again, like both of which are, this filtered down to a world of people who believe that their approach to driving automation will actually work anyway. It's so like, and there's always been like following Tesla. One of the things that was really interesting early on was like, and I know it's at Tesla Motor Club forum. In the owners forum, there would be, people would want the free and open exchange of like information about like what are the problems with like Model S and Model X and like, old days, the culture, it was more like any other, it was more fanatical, but like it was comparable roughly to any other sort of like car forum where the value is we're here to exchange information about what's going on here, and like we don't want that censored. And what happened was when I started poking around, others started poking around, then all of a sudden people from the investor sub forum at Tesla Motor Club started going into the other forums and saying, stop telling people about the problems you're having with your cars, because this is just going to be used by the short sellers. And so there's always been, and frankly, like at that time, like they won. Like I think Tesla leaned on teams, whatever. I don't have to get too hung up in the details of the example necessarily, but this was at the early days of the Tesla cult that we've come to know over the last years, really came into being. And like at the heart of Tesla, there's always been this conflict between, like, or rather, in Tesla online discourse, there's always been this conflict between what's good for consumers and what's good for investors. And investors have won that. And frankly, like, you've had a lot of people who fit in both categories, and they've been forced. And ultimately, especially because when the stock was doing well, it was like, well, yeah, my car's a piece of shit and it breaks down or whatever, but look how much money I'm making on the stock, right? And
I can buy a new one every month, man. Just keep going up.
Exactly. To buy more Teslas, like junk it, buy more. And so we've been in this like super cycle of investors winning out over consumers over and over and over again. And so now it's baked into this company's culture. Like being anti-consumer is baked into this company's culture to the extent that they are just like teabagging their customer, right? Like they're saying, like, this thing that you're spending a lot of money on doesn't actually belong to you. We're going to be able to like break into it remotely anytime we want,
just like
and use it to fucking mine Dogecoin. Like, anyway.
Oh, did you see this comment from Craig here? They need to please don't steal my cycles because it's getting dark button, but you'll never find it in the UI. Actually, I have a better idea.
I want to see the bumper stickers that are like, bought this before I knew Elon was stealing my GPU cycles.
You know what that reminds me of though is like, remember that era on Facebook when everyone was like, oh wait, why is this free? Oh, it turns out they're selling our information, and like boomers and like really dumb millennials. Like, maybe I don't know if that was boomers. I think it was actually like all of my 10 dumbest friends from high school that I was Facebook friends with, like did that copy pasta where they're like, this notice on Facebook is to tell Facebook you do not have rights to my information. So anyway, I think there'll be I need to like, this needs to be like a long-term plan for me. I need to like make a Twitter account like that is like pro Tesla, and then I'll just see the idea of a copy pasta if you tweet like, this tweet serves as a legal notice for Elon Musk. Like, you cannot mine Dogecoin from my car while it's, parked at this location. So,
yeah. Well, I don't know. Honestly, I mean, this is funny. I really do like. It's not just that I think like this particular pump would have done better during the crypto era. Honestly, like it's such a dumb idea. I wish he'd done it back when crypto was ripping, just so that we would just get through it now. This is the problem with these calls is like, you joke around, you laugh, you get to hear the old hits get played. You get to hear, if you're lucky, like this time we got a whole new stupid ass thing. But like now we get to face a process of like the serious media types scratching their chins and being like, well, it's a bold plan. Certainly there are some risks, but what if he just pulls it off? And then we're stuck, then now everybody has to take this fucking, like, not seriously, but like has to treat it like this is a serious company saying serious, you know what I mean? Like I'm getting tired, I think is my point, Eric. We've done this so many times.
But I think the problem is that the reason all that shit worked is I think that was like rocket fuel, or it was like an accelerant on top of their volumes going up, and so I think if I'm feeling optimistic about it not working, it's that first of all the pumps don't work like they used to. They objectively don't, right? They don't work. They don't have the half-life.
I'll stop you here to note the chat saying stock's at 160.40 right now. So
right. So it's up 11% in after hours, and that's basically just cut off 5 days of losses. I mean, it's nothing, right? I mean, it's
yeah. I guess when you put it that way, yeah.
I mean, like a lot of this is like the options market, right? So your options are right. This is just people, they're selling vol, right? And so it's I don't, and so like I don't know. I guess my thing in this is that like right. So all this other bullshit worked because the sales were going up, and I posted this on Threads earlier, and I saw it was going around a little bit on Twitter as well. Is like sales are collapsing. Looks like even worse this quarter, right? Like just in the first 3 weeks of April in China, right, which is kind of their reference market. That's where most of their profit. It's where like 35% of their revenues come from, or volume sales. I don't know if it's revenues, something like that. Like I mean, it is like quarter to date is down like 60% from the previous quarter, or from the quarter a year ago. So the first, like, right. So in China, you have to be careful because some people will do like, oh, well, this is like week 1 of the quarter, but then like, China has like, several weeks to a year where like literally nothing gets sold, and they're not always on the exact same weeks. Anyway,
also Tesla ships exports too, and that affects China. Yeah, it's a little lumpy.
Right, but like I mean, like the thing is like you and I can like get frustrated and right in the interim. Like I don't give a shit what the share price does. It's funny to me. It's still funny to me. Like I don't like actively trade this thing because it's.
I've still never had any exposure ever of any kind.
Right, and like for me, this is like still just entertainment, and it's also like a really interesting like kind of psychology discussion to have. It's just like the thing is like I think the thing at the end of the day is like is I think the investors and a lot of these people, they convince themselves that it's something different, but they all secretly know that it's just volume of car sales. Yeah. And Musk will say it, and you'll have the diehards do it, but like all of your like marginal car stock buyers, at the end of the day, I think most of them are aware that this is an auto company. And so like, yeah, I mean, like if you're like literally year over year, quarter to date, first 3 weeks of the second quarter, sales volume in Tesla, and this is by the way after a 10 to 20% price cut, or down 60% year. I mean, like you get like I'm sorry, like there can be all this like future and whatever, and they can have a big circle jerk and like tell they can all like pump the stock or whatever, but at the end of the day, like all that shit has nothing to do with the absolute free fall that Tesla sales volume, especially at the sales price they were selling them at before, is just absolutely collapsing. There's no that's fact.
No,
so
absolutely no, and like the historic context matters too. So actually, I was just wondering, I wrote blog post at Niedermeyer.io, which you can check out and read. I wanted to write that instead of doing this. Instead, my car ate its head gasket, which is cool. But essentially sort of what I concluded at that was that, to the extent that there's any, and I sort of contrasted Gary Black and Jason DeBolt, and like some people have mentioned, like pointed out, like, yeah, they're both idiots. And absolutely, if that's not clear from my piece, I should maybe do some edits. But the point is that right, like you and I've been following this long enough. We've seen Tesla get into trouble before, right? It's happened before, and there's been ways to get out. More recently, the sort of COVID era stuff, people don't really appreciate like what a weird situation that was. Like it was a massive undersupply in the US auto market, which is like unheard of, right? Unheard of. But it was also a massive undersupply in the US market sort of right at peak EV hype, right when, new companies were bringing products on the market, legacy companies were getting more seriously into this, this premium EV space. And like, and that was sort of the time when the Gary Blacks and the sort of like more sort of moderate, reasonable bulls were able to kind of come in and be like, okay, this is about right. Like I feel like we kind of reached a point prior to COVID where, like the quarterly earnings kind of stopped mattering, and like this sort of it was much more where we are now, which is like it all feels just like this abstract hype bubble with no substance. And like, so during COVID, we had years where, it was a really unique market conditions. EV makers could ask almost whatever they wanted for a car. Tesla was average transaction price was $70,000, $1,000 at the beginning of, and through the fat parts of COVID. So Tesla starts right there. The Model Y comes on, which is clearly their most mass market vehicle ever in terms of just like hitting where the sweet spot of the market is. Model Y comes on, COVID hits, the volume is booming, the profit is booming. We've been able to, like, Tesla has cultivated this vibe. And I say this as a critic who's kind of gone into hiding because of all of this, right? Because it's like, if their volume is growing and their profits are growing in the core car business, like, what do you say? Like, all the bullshit, it matters when the wolf's at the door or whatever. But like, if times are going good, like, Elon can say whatever he wants. It doesn't matter. The core business is doing fine. And it allowed this sort of class of like sort of respectable discourse among Tesla bulls to kind of establish itself. And I think what we're seeing now clearly with again, I think Gary Black is more of just sort of a bellwether than anything else. But I think his capitulation shows that constituency is gone and or is heading for the door. And this call didn't give them any reason to stay. Like, this call confirms we are back in the land of, you either are all in on Elon and the hype, or you got to be thinking about the exits, because Elon could not have been more clear that like he does not give a shit about the core like business of making and selling cars. And I've been ranting.
That's also sentiment, though. No, go ahead. Go finish.
No. I just to finish the thought. As a longtime critic, like, it's important to acknowledge here, Tesla has built almost 2 million units a year volume car business, making and selling cars, almost 2 million units a year. Like, that is such a like mind-bogglingly unpredictable and unprecedented accomplishment. The fact that he thinks, and that his investors, frankly his enablers, think that pivoting away from that is something you should even consider for a second, shows that they don't know what they've been doing all along, right? It shows they don't appreciate what they've actually made. And this is what I've said. I mean, this is the whole point of Ludicrous, is like, it doesn't matter how much upside you capture in the good times. If you don't protect what you've accomplished, so that it survives the downtimes, none of it matters. You're just going to be another list of the 1,000+ defunct American automakers on Wikipedia. And I think like Tesla, I've been waiting for Tesla since I started watching them and started sort of figuring them out. I've been waiting.
Yeah, you've been on death watch this whole time.
No, I've been waiting. It's not a death watch. It's a who's shoring up, these accomplishments and keeping them out of risk, right? Because it's one thing to put everything at risk in order to gain something, but once you have something to protect, right? Like you have to ring fence stuff off and protect it, whatever. And Tesla's not doing it. And
yeah, I mean, that was the genius of it, though, right? I mean, like, that's like it was like you could honestly blink, you could honestly squint, right? Like when earnings came out in like mid 2022, right? You're still growing volume, and if you're like, okay, like, well, yeah, maybe it's a little aggressive, but they're predicting like compounded 50% volume growth, which is like nonsensical. But you can squint at it and be like, okay, yeah, I mean, like, they're trading at like, like, if it really does keep going up forever, they're only trading it, like, and this is the thing Gary Black did, right? Well, they're trading it only like 25 times forward earnings, which is like still a little rich, but like they're mega growth and people love them and whatever. And you could there was a point there where like it like the stock ran way above itself, and then like COVID happened, and the numbers, the growth was good. And I think some of that profitability, a lot of it was like, fake, right? Because they weren't really investing for the future. But like, you could squint, and it's like almost like reality had like caught up to like the stock outrunning itself. And so it was like, well, what do you talk about? And like, I posted this on Threads the other day where I was like, look, they like, if you look at like just like the maintenance capex and R&D spend of like VW, and VW sells how many cars a year? Like 10 million, something like that.
Yeah, top tier. VW, GM, and Toyota are all 10 million units a year.
Yeah, so it's about 10 million, right? And so VW's doing. I actually don't think Toyota is a good benchmark, because they are such a unique company, and that's what they've always had, like a slight, they've always had a slight valuation premium to the market, even though Japanese equities are usually discounted by the market because they are so kind of uniquely good at the thing they do, and I think everyone kind of recognizes that. But like VW is like a perfect example, right? And so like VW's like combined like capex run rate, right? Like they're not growing. They're like they're growing with the market, and they're trying to take, maybe 1% of market share over like a 5-year cycle, right? That would be a huge accomplishment for them. But they're spending in between CapEx and R&D, which is effectively maintenance CapEx and maintenance R&D to keep the position they have in the market. They're spending $20 billion a year, $20 to $30 billion in a year on that.
Yep.
And
It's the car business, baby.
Right. Well, yeah, and so Tesla was spending, in between the two, like they peaked at like $7 billion a year. And it's like, well, you're gonna, like, in order to get there, like, forget maintenance CapEx, like, you're gonna have to spend a ton. And they didn't spend that amount. And so the idea that it would be this self-replicating cycle and they'd be able to just, forget even developing new models, right? You say, okay, fine, the Model 3 is so special, the Model Y is so special that we don't actually have to develop new models. It's software-based. You're still, like, just to build those cars or build those physical cars, keep those volume growth up, like, they objectively underspent on CapEx, and they were, and so my whole thing was like, this was always like kind of inevitable, but there was a moment where like reality almost caught up, and it's like, I don't know, like, I don't even know, like, I mean, it's, and like so much of this is like just price follows sentiment follows price follows, and so it's all self-replicating. So you'll get these ups and downs, and like it really feels like, for those of you not read on, like, Soros's reflexivity theory, that it's all connected, including like how efficient your employees are. Your employees are more efficient if you pay them in stock options, and they feel if they work extra hard and do whatever, they're gonna gain some of those capital gains back. So it's all kind of self-replicating on the way up.
If your stock goes up, if your stock is going up, but yeah.
Right. So the thing I've told people a lot before is if you look at like the mid 2000s, like right around the housing crash, before things got, everyone hated everything, but there was a point at which like oil was like pretty expensive, and tech stocks were still in this kind of like lull from like, they were in basically almost like a 10-year hangover after the dot-com bubble blew up. Like when that, if you took surveys from those like mid 2000s, if you took a survey of like best places to work in, I think it was even post dot-com crash, because oil held up, the best employers to work for were oil companies, because the stocks were doing well, because there was good economic prospects, and so people were getting paid in stock options. So then it's like, well, then all of a sudden it switched back to tech. Did tech magically become better, or is it because the market is self-reinforcing on the way up? It's also self-reinforcing on the way down. And I feel like we've switched to a larger secular long-term down cycle, both in this industry, some stuff in tech, but I mean, in terms of like Tesla as its own thing, it is on the downside of that. And I just don't think this pump was enough. This is like, it's like pretty boring, to tell you the truth. I mean, I don't know. It just feels like bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know who the pump is going to bring in that isn't already all in. You know what I mean? Like that's the and this has been Tesla's problem for a while, right? Is that like they can go deeper with their support base, whether it's their customer base, their investor base, whatever, their support base writ large. They can always go deeper, but what they're kind of, especially now, having a problem doing is going wider, right? And I think especially, this is where Musk's politics come into play, and a bunch of other things. I do want to hit something like really quick. I know we should probably wrap this up pretty soon. We've been almost 2 hours here, but I wanted to hit on the CapEx thing, because I think it's important. It's worth deciphering for a second, right? Because like essentially what they said, right? It's illustrative of like how much of what Tesla does is just like these abstract word games that like aren't tethered to anything really. But this whole next gen platform, and what are the new vehicles and the new models and all this sort of shit. I mean, basically what he said today was we're going to build new vehicles, one of which is the Cybercab, on something, and I need to go back. I want to look at the exact wording on it, but basically what I heard was that essentially like we won't have to really do CapEx, like we won't really have to do like buy new tooling. There'll be new models on a platform. He didn't call it a new platform. He said there will be elements of the new platform and elements of an existing platform, and it will be CapEx light. So I just want to deconstruct what that means really fast, and it's actually quite easy because it's what Tesla's already been doing. And this is also what I mean by like more of the same, right? The Highland they talked about, and you always know it. Like people don't see the value of this. People don't see the value of this. I mean, it's like it's not doing what we wanted, right? Like we saw people. They talked about how much engineering. People don't understand how much engineering we put into the Highland update for the Model 3. Well, that's because I saw, and it's a terrible picture, so I didn't post it. But I was in San Francisco to take my grandma to get ice cream, and I saw the pre-facelift Model 3 with the Highland Model 3 right in front of it. And they were like right next to each other, like quite a few cars back. So the photo I didn't got was no good. It looks like, I mean, I saw like Teslas with like Model 3s with tuner kits that looked more distinct than the Highland did from the pre-existing one. People aren't dumb. You can change the headlights, you can change the bumper, you can make little tweaks around the margins, but like people get it. It's the same car. And by the way, because you're so busy, everything is about investors, and investors always been about consumers. Like you've been telling the public that all we've done is take cost out of this thing. And from the reviews that I've read of the Highland, that's the impression from behind the wheel is it's a Model 3 that they took the cost out of. That's essentially what it looks like. Again, like it appears to be sort of the majority of the user experience. I guess maybe there are some advantages a little bit in, I don't know, wind speed or something, if you get a well-made one.
But if you point out but if you make the simple observation, like they've not developed a new model, people be like, they have, there's this. And it's like, well, why were sales not?
Yeah.
Show me on the sales chart where that came from.
So doing cost downs and tweaks on the existing metal doesn't work. Like it certainly doesn't work in China. Like that is 100, right? Like, and we see it with the Model S and the Model X, which are basically, once again, with the Model S and the Model X, the plaid, whatever facelift, I mean, that was like a quarter or two of like bump. I haven't looked at the sale like till closer in a while, but like it was barely noticeable. It was a quarter to whatever of and then boom, right back down. They're both dead in the water again. The Model S Highland in China, clearly it's not doing the trick. There's not a lot of evidence it's doing the trick here. So what he's saying is that, if you're not investing in all new tooling, or an all new platform or whatever, which he very clearly, stopped short of saying, more facelifts in the future. Well, if you think facelifts have been doing the job over the last year or two, yeah, like keep betting on that. Facelifts and price cuts, like more of the same, and that's, I think, the really interesting thing is that on what little was said on the operational side was essentially stay the course. And so I think if any part of your thesis involves making and selling cars, run, don't walk away from this company.
But Musk said that, which is interesting. You have these moments of like clarity where he does kind of just say the truth, and he's like, you think we're just an automaker? You should like sell the stock. And it's like I don't know. Like for me, it's like it's really weird because it's like the guy fucking lies as easily as he breathes, and in these moments, just like absolute clarity. Like, are you fucking listening to this guy? So I don't know, man.
It's nice to agree with Elon every once in a while. I agree. I agree.
I agree. We are living in a simulation.
Unless you think Tesla is going to solve autonomy, or you like the idea of Tesla like hacking into your car and running cycles on your GPU and wearing down your battery, don't bet on this company. All
right. You about ready to wrap it up? Do you want to end this?
Yeah, let's call it. This has been fun, but I think there's only so much more to say. So we also, we just went below 69 concurrent viewers. So I think that's our sign.
It maxed out like 130, which is like, oh man, we're doing numbers. Thanks everyone for listening.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, for listening, for watching, wherever you are. Great to see so many familiar names in the chat. We should do this again sometime.
Yeah, we'll work on the format or whatever. I really miss the like interactive talking and bringing people up and whatever, but life moves on.
Threads, get freaking spaces going. I would love spaces on Threads. That would be great. Meta could easily pull it off. Just do it.
All right, everyone. Have a good one, and I don't know, follow us or whatever. Call me a cuck online, which is what happens a lot. So it's fine.
Yeah, please direct all your slurs towards Eric.
Yes. Yes. So, all right, y'all. Have a good one.
Bye,
Good talking to
everybody.
you, Ed. Drive safe. All right, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.